This video we will be setting up Visual Studio on Windows to do our first OpenGL graphics project. This will be a hello world in a two-dimensional graphics environment. I've got a script here on the screen that we're going to be following to get everything set up. We have some things to download. And I will have links to all of these in the on YouTube with the video itself. But we're going to start. You should have already, if you're using the Windows environment for this, you should have already gone through the install of Visual Studio video that's out there on the YouTube site now. So I'm going to assume you already have Visual Studio installed. If you don't, go ahead and stop now and do that step first and go through the whole video to get your first project set up so you have that all familiarized. So we're going to start with, we need to download some OpenGL libraries. You should have base OpenGL functionality installed. It comes down as part of Visual Studio, but we need a couple of extension libraries. So we're going to start with this OpenGL extension. Library GLEW. So I've got some websites up for this, and like I said, I'll have links available for all these. So this is the main OpenGL site. I need from one of their SDK libraries, we need GLEW. So I'm going to go off to their download site, and I'll have this link in the website. So I'm going to download the 32 and 64-bit binaries, which should start here in a second. Right, and I'm just going to tell it to save it so it goes to my downloads folder, and it's not very big. So now we need this other library, GLFW. I've got that here. Once again, I'll have a link. We want the 32-bit Windows binaries. We're not going to do 64-bit development. So I'm going to save that file. And that comes down. All right. And then we need this FGCU GL source code. And that is out in a Git repository that I've created. I'll have links to these, but we need, I'm going to start with the header file, and I'm just going to grab the raw and save that into my downloads. And then I need the source code, the CPP file. So once again, I'm going to save the raw file into my downloads. All right, so we've got all the source that we need. Now we're going to organize this on our computer so that we can use it in any OpenGL projects that we create going forward. So here in my downloads, I can see I've got the two zip files for the GLEW and GLFW libraries, and I've got my other source code files. I'm going to leave this window open, and I'm going to open another Explorer window. And on my, you can do this wherever you want. You just have to keep track of what paths you use. But I'm going to go right here on my main C drive, and I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm just going to call it OpenGL. Right, and I'm going to create a folder in here called FGCUGL. And then I'm going to copy these two files. I'll just move them into here. So I'm going to say move here. I did a right-click drag. It gives you that choice where you can choose copy or move. And then I'm going to go back here to the OpenGL level, and now I'm going to extract these zip files. So I'm going to right click and say extract all, And actually, I don't want to do that because it ends up doing a folder inside of a folder. So actually what I'm going to do, I canceled that, and I'm actually going to double click this, and it'll kind of go into it, and you can see I can keep drilling in. I'm going to go back to the zip file, and I'm going to grab this inner folder, and I'm just going to drag it over here. I'm left clicking and dragging, and it'll just extract it there for me. And this way the zip file stayed in the downloads. I just copied the inner folder out. If we extract the whole thing there, we end up with this folder and then another layer down. And so I'm just going to grab this one. I'm going to left click and drag, and it'll copy it out of the zip file into here. And of course, it hasn't removed it from the zip file, just copied it while extracting. All right, so we've got all of our libraries. So just kind of looking back again, if I expand my C drive, I have this OpenGL folder. I've got an FGCU-GL folder with these two sources. I've got a GLEW. And what we care about is this include directory and this lib directory. We'll also, in this release, we'll be looking at the Win32. Here's our library that we need. We're also, for this library in this bin, we're going to need this DLL, and we'll copy that. Over here in this GLFW, notice there's no bin directory. This is all a static library. And then depending on what version of Visual Studio you have, if you've just installed, you should have Visual Studio 2019. So we'll be using the lib file out of this. And of course, it has an include directory with headers that we'll need. Okay, so let's move on from here. All right, so we've done all this. Now we need to create an empty project. So I'm going to start up Visual Studio. And what I'll do is try to move this over here. And I'm just going to create a new project. And I'll pick an empty project. And I'm going to call this Hello OpenGL. And notice I'm using the capitalization so I can tell the difference between my project files and my source files. I want this to be in that documents folder repository that I've been using. So I want my username documents repos, and I want the solution and the project to be in the same directory. So I've got that checked. All right, so we'll say create. I'm going to organize these directories a little bit better. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the Windows key and the right arrow, and I'm going to click on this, and then I'll grab where it gets the double arrow here, left click, and I can now drag this way. And this way I'll have more room for Visual Studio. All right, so we have our new project. We need to add a main file to this. So I'm going to right click and do add a new item, a CPP file, and I'm just going to call it, call this one hello gl.cpp. All right, and now that I have a C++ file added to my program, I can start editing some project properties. If I don't add a C++ file first, then I won't get this C++ choice in here, and I need that. So we have to now link in some of those libraries to our project. And we're going to do that through, well, before we do that, sorry, I hit, just close that window, however you close it. It freaks out if you don't hit OK or cancel. So just hit cancel. I'm sorry, I want to go down these steps. We've got our main file. We want to get our template. So if you save, like I said, you should have a template like this. And I'm going to select everything. I did Control A to select everything and Control C. And I'm going to paste that in here. And then now I can change this. The name of my file was, I'm sorry, hello GL. And then you're either 10410 or 10409. So whichever CRN you're in, put that. And then this will be demo OpenGL in C++. All right. We can leave all the rest of this template the same. I'm going to save this, and now I'm going to, let's go back to our checklist. We've pasted our template and updated it, which is really the name of the file and the description. All right, now we're going to edit the project properties. So we're going to click, remember we have a solution and a project. We want the project. I'm going to right click and come down here to properties. All right, and then once again in the C++ tab under general, I need these additional include directories. So I'm going to click this, I click in here, and I'm going to do this all kind of with the mouse. I'm going to click on this down arrow, and then I'm going to click on edit. And then in this box, I need to add a folder. It says new line, but I'm really adding a path. So I'm going to click on that, and then I get this build button, and I'm going to click that. And now I can go find that. Remember, it's showing right here, but if I come down here to my C:\OpenGL, and I'm going to do this in the reverse order. This is the least important library, so I'm going to click on it first. That's the GLFW, and then the include directory is what I need. I don't need to go in any further. I just need to get to include and do select folder. And notice it gives me the path here. Now I'm going to add another one, and see it adds it above it, which is why I'm kind of working backwards. So I click that build button, I come back to my C drive, OpenGL, and now I need the GLEW library. So I double click, I find include, I'm going to double click on it just to make sure it's selected here, and then I'm going to hit select folder, if it'll let me. Got it selected. Okay, there we go. So just make sure it says wherever you put your OpenGL folder, the name of the library, and then the include directory. All right, so I can say OK there. All right, and then now I need to go to the linker tab, which is down here, and on general, so I'm going to expand that, and on general, in the additional library directories, we're going to do basically the same thing. I'm going to click the down arrow, then the edit, then I'm going to add a line, click the build, and if it starts showing up here in the quick access, you can just click on it here. Otherwise, keep going down, find your C, OpenGL, and then we're going to start again with GLFW, and then your version of Visual Studio. I'm using Visual Studio 2019, and I just need this path, so I'm going to say select folder, and I can see that it's got it in there. All right, then I'm going to add another line, click the build. I'm just going to click the shortcut here, and I'm in C drive OpenGL. I need the GLEW, the lib folder, and I'm just going to, yeah, I need to go into release and then pick the Win32 version. Okay, and then I can say OK, and those paths are in there. Now these paths, you can just type them in here. You see separated by a semicolon. You can copy and paste and put them in there, but if you use the little builder, then it's pretty safe. Okay, now we need to go to linker input. This should it should have been at this level. All right, we need to go to linker input, And there's a whole bunch of, when we go to input under additional dependencies, notice there's already a whole bunch of them in there. And I don't want to get rid of these. So I'm going to type. I'm just going to click in here and navigate so that I'm in front of all the system libraries. And then I'm just going to add these ones that we see here. All right. So I need OpenGL32.lib. Now we don't know where that is, but it's one of the ones that was installed with Visual Studio, so it should know where all these ones that it installed are. And now we've given paths to the other. Notice you put a semicolon to separate them. I need to add the GLEW32.lib. I'm going to put a semicolon, and then the GLFW3.lib, which should be in that folder. Don't forget the semicolon between it and kernel32lib. All right. If you get rid of these, your program should still work fine, but it's safest to just keep those there. They're normal, standard libraries that are used in C++ development. All right, so we've added OpenGL32lib, GLEW32lib, and GLFW3.lib. All right, and I'm going to say OK. All right, so now we have to copy some files. So we're going to go back on the file system now and find that C:\OpenGL directory. And now I need to find where I put this project. Now I have a couple ways of doing that. One, in this other folder that right now is pointing to my downloads, I know that I was putting my repos in documents. My repository is here in my documents. So if I go into there, there's my Hello OpenGL project that I'm working on. Now another way is I can go over here in Visual Studio, select the project, right-click it, and down here at the bottom there's an open folder in File Explorer. So I can left-click on that, and it will actually open a File Explorer right to the project folder, which is very helpful. All right, so I've got that, and I'm going to start getting too many files open. So I'm going to close this one that was pointing at repos, and this other one that was in my OpenGL folder. Okay, so we need these two files from FGCU-GL. All right, so I need both this header and the CPP file, and I am going to right-click and drag so that when I drop, it gives me choices and I can say copy here. Now the other thing, you can hit Control-C, click over here and Control-V. Whatever you do, copy them over. I would not remove them. Make sure they don't move because you'll need to create more projects and do this in the future. And I am going to show later how to create a project template so you don't have to do that every time, but I don't want to do that as part of this video. All right, but we need these two files to be part of the project. Okay, you can see our other HelloGL CPP file, which is our main file in here. All right, we have one other file. So back over here, I'm going to go back to the OpenGL, and in the GLEW folder, in the binaries file, bin folder, release for Win32, I need this DLL. So I'm just going to copy it. So once again, I'm going to right click and drag, and then drop and hit copy. All right, I can still see it there, and now I have it here. Okay, so this is a dynamic link library, and I need to have it associated in here with the project. All right, so I can link to that at runtime. Okay, so at that point, I'm done with this OpenGL folder. So I've got it here, though, for when I create future projects. All right, plus it's going to be looking at it for those library files that we linked to and header files in the include directory. So I'm going to close that though. And I don't really need to see this anymore. I'm just going to shrink it down. Okay, so we've done all of our project properties. All right, we've copied our files in. Oh, okay. We do need to go back to the project folder. All right, so if you closed it, you need to get back to this. Remember, if I close it, I can click back on the project, right-click, go down here and say Open Folder in File Explorer. All right, so Here I see all my project files. Remember, if you're not seeing extensions, go to View and check this file name extensions box. All right, so notice in my Solution Explorer over here, I only see the Hello GLCPP file that I added to it. I need to add these two source code files to the project. So the easiest way to do that is highlight them. So I click on the first one, I hold Shift, and I click on the next one. It doesn't matter. If they weren't in order, I can select one, hold Control, and click the other. And that would actually let you like select two files that aren't next to each other. Either way, so I'm going to hold Control and click these two files. I've let go. Now I'm going to left click and hold and drag these two files to the project name. Now when I drop them, it will actually insert a reference to them in the project. Notice it organized the header under this virtual header files and the source code file under the source code files directory. But remember, out here in the project, they're still just in the project folder. This is just a logical ordering here. All right, and when you click on them, it will open them over here, and it's kind of weird. Notice Hello GLCPP is here tab-wise. The other header file, it put the tab over here for some reason. It just does that sometimes. So I'm going to close that. All right. Okay, so we come down here now. We've added these two files to the project. Now in our main application file, which is Hello GLCPP, we need to include this fgcugl.h file. So we always want to do system libraries first. All right, now this is here so that we can do debugging at this point. Once we go into the graphics environment, I'll demonstrate that. But this is a system library. We know because we've included it using the chevrons. Now we want to include a header file that's in our project directory. So we do another include, and you always do these after system libraries. Mainly because they a lot of times depend on those system libraries as well. All right. So here though, I need to use the double quotes. And notice I get a link to things that are either in my project folder or that I've included through those additional include directories properties that we set. But I just need this fgcugl.h file. So I'm going to double click that and it adds it. All right, and this is for Opengl library. All right, okay, so we're down here. Now within our main function, we just need to do a couple of things to be able to do a good hello world. First is in here, we need to call this open window. All right, now our FGCUGL code is in its own namespace by the exact same name. So we need to specify the namespace, FGCUGL, 2 colons for the namespace. And now we can actually get this drop-down list. And I'm going to just start typing open window, and I'm going to hit enter. And then I'm going to do a left parenthesis. It fills it in, and it starts to give me help of what I can add. So it says a width, a height, and a title. So for right now, we're just going to keep this simple. I'm going to say 200 for width, 200 for height, and I'm going to make the title Hello GL. Bang. All right, and that should show up in the window title bar. Okay, and my semicolon to end that statement. All right, now we need a simple while loop, and we'll go into all the specifics of all these statements as we go. Right now we just need them to make this application work correctly. So I need to say while, and then inside of parentheses, I need to say not FGCUGL namespace window closing. So I can use my up and down arrows to highlight the one I want and hit enter. And then a left parenthesis, and notice there's no parameters for this, and it returns a Boolean, so true or false. So I'm saying while window closing is not true, not this. All right, and then I'm going to come down and add my curly braces. And remember I said if you want to put your starting curly brace on the same line, that's fine. All right. Now inside this loop, I need to do two things for a basic OpenGL program. I need to do FGCUGL window paint. So I'm going to use my scroll, my down arrow, to come down here to window paint and hit enter, and then I'll let parentheses. Notice there's no arguments. It's just telling it to paint the screen. And then I'm going to come down a couple lines and do an FGCUGL, and then 2 colons, and I'm going to say get events. All right. And in general, some of these things are going to move later, but this will draw updates to the screen, and this will check for keyboard and window events. All right. So for us to know that the window is closing, we have to check for events. We have to get the current events as they get queued up in a special queue. Right? And if we look down here, the last thing we need to do after the window is closing is we need to call GCU GL namespace cleanup. Oh, there we go. And then if I start a left parenthesis, notice once again no, and that'll clean up the OpenGL environment for us cleanly, nicely, get everything cleaned up out of memory and everything. Okay, so this is basic what we need. I'm going to save this, and let's do a build. I'm going to do build hello OpenGL, or I could do build solution because I only have one project in the solution. Either one is the same. And down here in my output, notice I get a couple of things as far as errors. Some of these warnings and stuff are coming out of the FGC GL, and they're just warnings, but they're warnings we don't really care about. All right. What we care is that we have a build succeeded. Okay, so let's run it. I'm just going to hit local Windows debugger, and here's our console window, and there's our OpenGL window. Let's see if it'll let me move it around. All right, so there's our little OpenGL window, and it's about 200 pixels wide and 200 pixels high. All right, and the title, it's kind of cut off. It should be saying hello GL exclamation, but it's kind of cut off. So we'll play with that here in just a second. I'm going to stop this. Now what we can do is we can actually close the window, which should get caught by get events, and then as it comes around and evaluates the while loop again, it'll see that the window is closing. Right, and it says while it's not closing, keep looping. So once it is closing, it should exit and do the cleanup. Right? And all right. So let's stop the debug. All right, and in here now, let's actually put something on the screen. All right, let's say that we want to say, we want to write some text. Let's create a string variable. Let's create a standard template library string, and we'll call it display text. And we'll set that equal to, in double quotes, hello OpenGL world. Oh, I'm sorry. We have to do this in all caps, and I'll show you why in a minute. So we need to do hello OpenGL world. And that's because our pixelated games are only going to support capital letters. And we'll do an exclamation. All right, and then an ending semicolon. All right, and then what we're going to do here is we'll say FGCU GL, and let's do 2 colons, and then we want to draw text. So I'm going to scroll down here to draw text, and then hit left parentheses. Now it says we gotta tell it where in the x-coordinate and the y-coordinate that we want our text to show up. All right, and then the actual text. So we need some kind of an x, some kind of a y, and then our display text. Display text. And we'll talk about these other parameters later, but notice each one of these has a default value, the size and the color. All right, and I'm just going to put a semicolon so I don't forget that later. We just need to come up with what the x and y is. Now, one thing, we'll get into this later, but right now each character is 8 pixels by 8 pixels. Another 8 pixels wide, 8 pixels high. So we have a screen right now that's 200 by 200, and we have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 characters. So if we bring up the calculator, and let me go to the normal standard tab. If we said we have 19 characters times 8 characters wide, 8 pixels wide per character, that's 152 characters. And we only have 200 pixels wide. So I'm going to do plus or minus to make this a negative so I can add it to 200. That says I have 48 characters left over. If I divide that by 2, that means I have 24 characters that I want to have on the left and 24 on the right if I want to center this text. So let's put the x, or the left, at 24. Right. Now the characters are all 8 pixels high, and I've got a screen right now that's 200 pixels high. So if I do my 200 minus 8, that leaves me with 192 characters, and if I divide that by 2, that means I want to have 96 characters above the text and 96 pixels above and 96 pixels below. So we're going to set the y at 96. Now it just so happens, and we'll get into our coordinate system later, but our y coordinate is actually to the bottom of whatever we're drawing. And like I said, we'll talk about our coordinate system later. All right, so I'm going to save this. All right. It says there's an error here. I don't think there is. I think there was an error before when I had x and y there. But okay, so it should be good now. I'm going to do a build. Okay, and then I'm going to click Run. I'm going to click this Local Windows Debugger Run. All right, and there's our text centered in our screen, vertically and horizontally centered. Now it's really small and hard to read, right? And here's our console window. We're not seeing anything on it. So I'm going to just hit Close here, and then I'm going to stop the debugger. It doesn't appear that our window is working correctly, but I'll look at that later. It should have caught that it was closing and went ahead and exited. All right, so let's make this bigger, and let's do it a little dynamically. Let's just real quick, we're going to set, we're going to create an integer variable, and we'll call it our screen width. And we'll set that equal to 200. And then another int called screen height, and we'll set that equal to 200. Right? And then we can go ahead and copy screen width and put it here. And then you notice I'm just double clicking. It selects the whole word, and then I can do my Control C and then Control V. Right? And this is just going to make it easier for us to make changes to things. All right, and then let's come down here, and we need an x and y position for our text. So let's come down and do an int x, and we're going to make that equal to, all right, so simple formula. Basically what we did on the calculator is we want to get the screen width and we want to subtract from that. We need to get the length of our string, hello OpenGL world, which is called display text, and times 8, because it's 8 pixels per character wide. So we need display text, and we want to get the length. Remember, it's a string, and length is a string function. And then, so I need the parentheses for it for a function, and that's times 8. Right? Now, I really didn't need the parentheses here because this would happen before the minus. Let me get rid of that here and show that. Remember, this multiplication will happen, so these two will be multiplied before they're subtracted from this, which is fine. So this will tell us how many characters, how many pixels we have left over total. We want to divide that by 2. So I'm going to put parentheses around all of this and say divide by 2. This way this subtraction happens before we divide by 2. All right, and I'll put a semicolon there. And then likewise for our y, I'm going to say we want to do, now we don't care about how many pixels they are, we don't care about how many letters, we don't care about the length of the string. We know each of these characters is 8 pixels high, so our whole line is 8 pixels high. So we just want to do 8, we want to do our screen height. Now I can start typing, and if it finds it, I'm spelling it correctly, I can use the up and down arrows to highlight and then hit enter. And I can do that minus 8, because characters are 8 pixels high, and then I can divide all that by 2. All right, now I haven't changed a whole lot, which is fine. I'm going to replace this with x and y. And remember I said we're not allowed to use single character variables in this class unless they mean something particular, and there'll only be one instance of them, right? We don't want to have like an x1 and x2 unless we're really dealing with 2 line points. But we'll see that later. For right now, this is fine. All right, so I just want to do what we've got right now. Let's see the difference between the console window and what we're displaying on the text. Up here, after we open the window, it really doesn't matter where, but let's just do from the standard template library, let's do a console out with an insertion operator, and then we'll say showing hello world, or let's say instead of showing, let's do saying hello to the OpenGL world. Right? And this is just going to help us. Let's do another insertion, and from the standard template library, we'll use the end line, end L. All right, and this will just show us the different pieces that are happening. Okay, I'm going to save. I'm going to build. I'll just do build solution. All right, same warnings, no errors, it succeeded. I'm going to hit run. Okay, so in our console window, we got saying hello to the OpenGL world. So you can see we can still, as long as we include IOStream, we can still use cout statements, which will help us later in doing some debugging while our graphics is running. We also got our graphics window. Our hello OpenGL world is still there in the small little window centered. All right, so let's close the window, and then we'll stop the debugger using that little red square. Okay, and then let's do this little dynamic. Let's come up here and create another integer variable, and we'll call it scale. And let's do a scale of 2. All right. So that means we want to multiply our screen width times our scale and our screen height times our scale. Okay. And basically what we're saying is we want a 400 by 400 window. All right. And then let's come down here now. We just need to mess with this a little bit because these are no longer 8 pixels wide. They're now 8 times our scale wide. So let's just add that in here, 8 times our scale. And down here, same thing, 8 times our scale. All right, doesn't really matter how it fits in the rest of the formula. Okay, and that should be it. That should give us a bigger window, and we'll still find out the center of it dynamically. So let's save that. I'll build. All right, succeeded. I'll hit the local Windows debugger. And now, what happened there? Oh, I know what happened. I forgot to tell the draw function what this new scale of it is. So let me stop the debugger here. And let's come back here. In our draw text function, if I just click here and hit a comma, it'll give me, oh look, there's a size. Right now it's defaulted to 1. And we want to use that scale property to say, no, we want them to be a scale of 2. All right, now let me build. All right, and this is just good habit. I could have just hit debug, but if I had errors, I wouldn't see them. I'd have to stop, go back and build. So it's better to do it in those steps. All right, so let me run the debugger now. There we go. Now we've told the draw text what the scale of the letters are. And we can see our window's larger. We can see the whole title now. And we can see what we wrote here. And we can still see what we sent out to the console window. All right, so just one more thing that you can have fun with. Let me stop the debugger. If we go into the header file here, this FGCU-GL header file, and I encourage you to go in and play around with this code. Right up here at the top, you see there's an enumerator, and we'll get into that later this semester, but we have something called color. We have all these defined colors. So let's just say magenta. Let's grab magenta. So I'm just going to copy that. And actually, I don't even need to, but I'll just hold on to that. And then if we scroll down, we can see all the different functions we can call. And then here's all those characters that we can do. All right, and I'll be showing you what all those characters are later. All right, let me come back here. And here, let's draw our text a different color. So after the scale, I'm going to hit a parentheses. All right, and I need to do, because I want to use that name, I'm going to do FGCUGL 2 colons, and then I'm going to put magenta. So I just started typing it. I could do maroon or magenta. All right, and then I'm going to hit save. And now let me run that again. Let me build. All right, it succeeded. All right, so we run it in the debugger this one last time. We get the window to come up, and here we have our text now is colored. I'm going to go ahead and stop the debugger, and so you can come in here and try some other colors from the library. But that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. We created Hello World in a graphics window. We'll be using this code from this project for the next couple of projects. It'll be very similar without some of the without some of these pieces, but we'll see as we design the new projects. But it'll be very similar. Okay, so if you're looking to do this on the Mac, I'll have that video out, and I'll see you guys in class.